Aya Wilson was just named Time Magazine's 2025 Athlete of the Year, an honor that should have marked a celebratory milestone in her career. However, instead of focusing solely on the achievement, Wilson used the moment to make remarks that many interpreted as a subtle jab at Caitlin Clark. During her interview, Wilson stated that the history of the WNBA had been erased for a minute, a comment widely viewed as a pointed reference to Clark's massive and transformative impact on the league. Rather than uniting fans, the remark immediately reignited controversy. What made the situation even more striking was the apparent contradiction in Wilson's stance. Just 1 year earlier, when Clark won Time Magazine's Athlete of the Year, Wilson publicly expressed frustration over recognition, suggesting that Clark's spotlight overlooked others and framing the discussion around broader social and racial dynamics. Now, however, Wilson appeared entirely comfortable standing alone as the sole face on Time's cover. To many observers, the inconsistency was impossible to ignore. As the debate escalated, Caitlin Clark finally responded publicly. Her reaction became a focal point of conversation across basketball media and social platforms. Before Clark's response was revealed, fans were encouraged to weigh in themselves, sparking further engagement around whether Wilson truly deserved the award. By all accounts, Wilson should have been fully enjoying her moment. She had just completed a historic 2025 season, captured her 4th MVP award, and helped lead the Las Vegas Aces to another championship run. Yet instead of centering the conversation on those accomplishments, she redirected attention by stating that WNBA history had briefly been forgotten. Those words were not seen as accidental or casual. Many believed Wilson was acutely aware of the implications and the target of her statement. To understand the deeper meaning behind Wilson's comment about erased history, it is necessary to look at the timing. Her statement aligned directly with Caitlin Clark's explosive rookie season the year prior. Clark shattered attendance records, drove unprecedented television ratings, and generated a level of media exposure the WNBA had not experienced in years. When Wilson spoke of history being erased, critics argued she was not referring to abstract preservation of legacy, but rather to how Clark's rise temporarily overshadowed the accomplishments of established stars, including Wilson herself. One of the most telling aspects of the situation is Wilson's silence throughout Clark's historic 2024 campaign. Clark won Rookie of the Year unanimously, broke 62 league and rookie records, and guided the Indiana Fever to their first playoff appearance since 2016. She became a global ambassador for women's basketball and was ultimately named Time Magazine's 2024 Athlete of the Year. Despite all of this, Wilson did not publicly acknowledge Clark's success at any point. That silence extended beyond accolades. When Clark faced hostile road crowds, aggressive physical play, and even reported threats, Wilson offered no public support. During moments when Clark absorbed hard fouls and appeared to be targeted defensively, Wilson, often positioned as a leader within the league, remained quiet. To many fans, that absence of support spoke louder than words. Now, Wilson claims her remarks were about safeguarding the league's legacy. However, critics argue that her decision to raise the issue only after receiving the largest platform of her career undermines that explanation. The Time Magazine's spotlight provided an opportunity to subtly minimize Clark's influence while framing the critique as defense of the WNBA's past. In the interview, Wilson stated that Clark's rise was not a personal attack on her, insisting that she would continue to succeed regardless. She emphasized her own resume, highlighting her MVPs and Olympic success, and stressed that nothing could diminish her accomplishments. Yet even in discussing Clark, Wilson centered the conversation on herself. To many, this suggested she viewed Clark's emergence less as a positive force for the sport, and more as a challenge to her own standing. The Time magazine feature further complicated matters by referencing a broader narrative surrounding Clark's rise, including claims that her popularity fueled divisive discussions about race and credit within the league. The article alluded to debates about whether Clark was being portrayed as single-handedly reviving a league built largely by black athletes. This framing appeared within Wilson's profile, reinforcing perceptions about the narrative she endorsed regarding Clark's impact. Wilson has long cultivated a public image focused on unity, empowerment, and mutual support among women in basketball. She frequently speaks about uplifting one another and growing the game collectively. Yet her indirect remarks about Clark revealed a contrasting side. Critics argue she employed subtle language and indirect criticism to undermine the very player who had drawn unprecedented attention to the WNBA. This contradiction between Wilson's stated values and her actions led many to believe her comments were intentional rather than incidental. Her words seemed to confirm suspicions held by fans throughout the 2024 season that resentment existed beneath the surface. Wilson had multiple opportunities to welcome Clark as a rising star elevating the league. Instead, she chose restraint at best and passive criticism at worst. The broader implications extend beyond individual players to league leadership itself. Observers began questioning how the WNBA would address the growing tension between its most established stars and its fastest rising phenomenon. The league's hypocrisy became even more apparent when comparing its response to Wilson's Time magazine recognition with its treatment of Clark the year before. During Clark's 2024 breakout, Wilson and several other players openly criticized the level of attention Clark received, arguing that it was divisive and unfair. Some suggested that Clark's spotlight overshadowed others and framed the issue around broader social narratives. During that period, league figures echoed similar sentiments. Sheila Johnson, owner of the Washington Mystics, publicly argued that the entire WNBA deserved recognition rather than one individual. Wilson maintained that Clark's accolades overlooked contributions from players who built the league's foundation. The messaging consistently emphasized collective success over individual stardom. Fast forward to 2025, and Wilson appears alone on Time magazine's cover as Athlete of the Year. The voices that once demanded shared recognition are suddenly absent. No one calls for Wilson's teammates to be included. No one argues that her spotlight is unfair or divisive. The contrast is impossible to ignore. The same arguments used to criticize Clark vanish when Wilson benefits from individual accolades. Her previous comments suggesting that Clark's recognition was influenced by external factors now appear particularly telling. Wilson faces no comparable scrutiny over her own honor, nor does anyone question whether other players were overlooked. This selective outrage highlights deeper inconsistencies within the league. When Clark generated unprecedented revenue, attendance, and viewership, league leadership remained largely quiet. Yet she endured constant criticism for receiving attention.